whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues. We'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, I'm refreshed from the bye week that was. The calendar has now turned to week 15. Now, there's still 114 game left to decide the fate of the final playoff spot in the AFC, but that has no bearing or nor impact on us. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's week 15. It's Giants sequel week, and we can turn the page and now start to talk about the biggest game in FedEx Field since 2012. Sunday Night Football, home against the Giants, 2 7-5-1 teams. The last time these two teams met, just a week ago in week 13, a tie at 20. We'll get to that in a second, but first, let's talk about some news that hit the wire today. And it's very impactful because it opens up a number of different conversations. Some that people don't want to have, some that people are dying to have, and others who don't want to have it about these two guys, but want to have it about somebody else. So let's go ahead and open that can of worms. Shall we? I personally would like to keep it closed, but now it's here. Okay, there's nothing you can do about it. And so let's open that can. And I'm talking about the Carson Wentz can of worms, and really just the quarterback position as a whole, and open up that conversation and start the dialogue. So Carson Wentz officially activated off of IR today, and in a corresponding move, offensive lineman Tyler Larson was placed on IR. Now, we knew about his injury. We talked about it, dislocated kneecap. I've heard that it's, something similar to that, but, there's a disc in his knee that needs repair, and they're going to go in there and clean up some other things. It may not be as bad as a dislocated kneecap. Whatever the case may be, his season is done. Okay? So that's unfortunate for us. Another unfortunate break on the offensive line, specifically at the center position, which has been a problem each of the last two seasons. That said, I thank Tyler Larson for his service. He was huge this season. Without him, I don't know if we make it to this point. And I'm not being, over the top. I'm not being extreme here. He really was one of the big guys that came in right around week 5 or so, 6, and really helped stabilize this offensive line. And I'm hoping Nick Martin can come in and just do his job and do it adequately. That's all we're hoping for at this point. All right. But to the bigger story, because I'm burying the lead by talking about Tyler Larson. Let's talk about Carson Wentz and him being activated off of IR. So effectively, what that does, whether some of you want to hear this or not, is it opens the conversation as to how long of a leash does Taylor Heinicke, I sound like one of them, Taylor Heinicke, that's because I was just talking about Tyler Larson. Y'all show me some mercy and grace, okay? How long of a leash does Taylor Heinicke actually have now that Carson Wentz is officially off of IR? That's a real question, because before, when Heinicke would make a mistake or would have a rough go of it, and he's had some games here lately, especially the Falcons game. I wasn't too thrilled with the way that he performed in that game, but we won. But it was a lot closer than it needed to be. The Giants game wasn't one of his best performances. Once again, we left points out on the football field, and it wasn't all him, and I've already pointed that out. But he could have done his part to be a little bit more better. That would have given us an opportunity to possibly win that football game. And so when you start to see some of those things, we talked about every game, Heinicke's going to turn it over at least once. You don't know in what form or fashion, but he's going to do something, fumble. And again, not all of the fumbles are on him. I mean, how he held on to that football at the end of overtime may have saved the season, So, but at some point there's going to be a pick or a fumble. You just got to deal with it, and you hope he gets it out of the way sooner rather than later, and not have a soul-crushing, back-breaking turnover late in the ball game that we can't overcome, like against Minnesota. That said, he's played well. He's won 5 out of his 7 starts. And he's helped thrust us and propel us to where we are right now, which is dead center of the middle of the NFC playoff conversation. So there's been a lot of support for him. I think most fans, I think the vast majority of the fan base wants Taylor Heinicke in there. He's earned the right to be there. This team has won with him, whether it's been pretty or not. He's gotten the job done. There is a portion of the fan base, just like it was with Kirk Cousins, and they don't necessarily represent the majority of us, but they are definitely the loudest that are beating the drum, just like they were with the Kirk situation, that want to see Carson Wentz back in the fold. I think that Taylor Heinicke's play obviously is going to determine what decisions they make. But I think when Ron said it's a fluid situation and they're going to go week to week, I think it really now resonates. Because when Carson Wentz was still on IR, it wasn't really a week-to-week decision. It wasn't really anything for him to talk about. They weren't putting in a rookie quarterback in Sam Howell. They weren't putting him in the game. So barring any type of catastrophe, it's going to be Heinicke. But now that Wentz is officially the backup quarterback, which he will move to the backup quarterback, and that will send Sam Howell more likely than not back to inactive on most game days, it now opens the door for, a discussion. If Heinicke doesn't play well or doesn't play up to the standard that we've set for him, we lose a game that we feel like we could have won if we had better quarterback play and he didn't play well, and that's noticeable, will they make the change? That's where the question comes. How long is the leash? How long is the leash for Taylor Heinicke? I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you. I don't really have an answer. And Ron made it abundantly clear that as long as he keeps winning, there's nothing to worry about. They're not going to take a guy out that's winning football games, even if it's not pretty. That's how we've gotten to this point, because really none of his games have been all that pretty, aesthetically pleasing, but the results you cannot deny. And we can sit here and we can minimize his impact and talk about, well, he's just a passenger. They've won games despite him or in spite of him. You can kind of phrase it however you want, but the numbers are what they are. 5-1-1 as a starter this season for Taylor Heinicke. Again, you can put it any way you want, but the guy's winning football games. So it's going to be interesting because he didn't have anybody breathing on his neck. He didn't have anybody looking over his shoulder and monitoring all mistakes. That's about to change this week with Carson Wentz. There's this pressure, and one thing we've learned about Taylor Heinicke, when pressure is applied, he produces diamonds. Well, this pressure now that he feels with number 11 right behind him now, he didn't have this pressure before. Will this either force Heinicke to play his best football, or, like the Texans game, will Heinicke try to be too fine? Will he try to stay in the pocket, not run because he doesn't want to get hurt? Will he try to do everything to hold on to the job and have it be counterproductive to his style of play, which has been reckless abandon, controlled chaos, but, doing the things that got him here? There are times where you can tell Heinicke isn't doing the things that got him here because he's thinking more long-term. Hey, I'm here to stay. I'm not going anywhere. Whereas before, when he first got here, hey, I was just on my sister's couch. I don't want to go back. I'll do anything I have to do to stay here. And that means putting my body on the line, doing whatever it takes. I'm willing to do it. Obviously, he's human. If I were him, I would be thinking differently as well. You would too. Once you got here, you're here to stay. You don't have to take some of the risks that you took before. And if you're starting, you definitely don't want to get hurt. You don't want to give them a reason. The only reason he's starting is because Carson Wentz got hurt. If Wentz doesn't get hurt, I don't think they make the change. So you don't want to open the door for another man to come in and take your spot after you've worked so hard to stave him off and keep him where he's going to be on Sunday, which is as your backup. So there's a question to be asked. Do we get the Taylor Heinicke that we need, that we want, but more specifically that we need? Or are we going to get the Taylor Heinicke that's going to be a little bit passive-aggressive and cautious and, not really looking to take the risks that are necessary? I felt like we saw that guy in the Texans game, specifically in the first half, in that first quarter, where he was uptight, he wouldn't run, he missed throws. That Green Bay game, remember he talked about the nerves he had? Those are the two performances in particular. That first half against Green Bay, and I thought the first half against Houston, specifically the first quarter against Houston, where I said, if that's the Taylor Heinicke we're getting, he needs to sit down. He needs to sit down. This is a big game. This is the biggest game Taylor Heinicke would have played in since the Tampa Bay playoff game. There's no game that can top that for him. That's the game that got him back into the league for good. So, but he had nothing to lose in that game. Everything to gain, nothing to lose, which is why he played the way that he played. There's something to lose here against the Giants. So, I'm anxious to see what he does. But I also want to, I hate that I'm going to bring this up, but this is a real conversation. With the emergence of Brock Purdy in San Francisco, there's a lot of people now that are starting to come. And these people, they weren't necessarily behind the scenes. They've been talking about this all season long. It's just been easy to dismiss them because you knew it's not a thing. And it's not going to be one here unless something out of the ordinary happens. But you can't help but acknowledge the fact that the 49ers, and again, they're a different team. They're better coached than us, especially on offense. And their system is ironclad. It's proven to work wherever. All right? So Brock Purdy steps in as a 7th-round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, the very last pick of the 2022 NFL Draft. And he is gone and played phenomenal football, made his first career NFL start, and devoured the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that start. 35-7. Came in relief the week prior against the Dolphins, shredded them, won to help the 49ers win that football game, scored 33 points in that ball game, 35 this week. It then bears mentioning that if he can do that, the Falcons, and the Falcons aren't in the same position that we are in, because if the Falcons were, instead of 5-8, 8-5, they're not starting their rookie quarterback, Desmond Ridder. They're not. If the Buccaneers lose against the Saints on Monday Night Football last week, the Falcons aren't starting rookie quarterback Desmond Ridder. But because they're now a little bit further back in the standings, they're deciding to move to Desmond Ridder. I don't blame them. Mariota isn't the future, and the Falcons really aren't going anywhere this season anyway. So let's find out what we have, or at least have an idea. You can't know for sure after just, 4 games, which is all that's left in the Falcons season. You can't know. I mean, we got fooled with Dwayne Haskins after like 4 games at the end of 2019. You can't absolutely know for sure. It's going to take a full season for you to actually see what you have. But this is just a little tease, just a little taste of what could be. There are a number of Washington fans, not as much as the Carson Wentz stands out there, and clearly not even close to the amount of supporters for Taylor Heinicke and the Heinicke Hive. But there are some Sam Howell supporters out there, some Sam supporters out there that look at Brock Purdy and the success he's having and say, why can't Sam Howell do that here? Why can't we play our rookie and have success? He can do what Heinicke's doing and probably then some. I don't subscribe to that notion in theory because, again, usually rookie quarterbacks make mistakes. Not all rookies are created equal. You can't just look at Brock Purdy's success and say, our guy can do that. Oh, really? If that were the case, then you'd look at all these rookie quarterbacks, see the success of one guy out of that draft class and say, well, why aren't the rest of them doing that? Because all of them aren't the same, and no 2 rookies are created equal. Rookies make mistakes. And so far, Brock Purdy hasn't made a ton of them. But that day may come very soon. Who knows? He may decide to make his mistakes in one of the biggest games of the season. They get to the playoffs, his first game, and he may stink up the joint. Who knows? Or he may be really good. Either way, with Wentz's return, as long as both of these guys, Heinicke and Wentz, are healthy, you're not going to see Sam Howell at all this season. And I'll just say this because someone asked me about this. If Brock Purdy keeps playing really well, will the 49ers, make Trey Lance expendable? And will he be available? I don't know. And even if he were available, would we be interested? I don't know. Again, this small sample size isn't going to change the 49ers' mind on a guy that they traded up to go and get. Now, they're with Trey Lance every day. They see how he's digesting the playbook. Clearly, he's had an injury that has impacted him this season. But they're willing to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo for Trey Lance. And I think Brock Purdy is going to be the backup. I think they look at that situation. And Kyle, this is the fortunate part for 49ers fans. He's been through this before. 2 young quarterbacks on the roster at the same time. One is a guy you traded up for and got number 2 overall, or in their case, number 3 overall. We got ours number 2 overall. Kyle was here for all of it. He saw this firsthand. He knows how this works. And it's a very similar situation. The guy you traded up for, mobile quarterback, injury concerns, very talented, but not your traditional pocket passer per se. Backup guy you take, cool, calm, and collected, pocket passer, has some mobility, sneaky mobility, but that's more the guy that Kyle prefers. Remember, the rumor was he wanted Mac Jones. And everybody else said, dude, you need to take Trey Lance. We'll see what happens. But anytime a quarterback becomes available, our name is going to come up. I know that frustrates some of you. Baker Mayfield's name has re-entered the room in the chat, right? Since that performance. We'll see what he does the remainder of the season. It might have been a one-off. He might go back to stinking it up the final 4 games of the season. He may tear it up. And that still may not be an indication that he's going to tear it up for your team. But any name of a quarterback that has any merit to it is going to be linked to us at some point, or our fans are going to link them to us. It's just how this works. So saddle up, guys. It's going to be a hell of a finish to the season and an even wackier offseason when we finally get there. Because between Daniel Snyder potentially selling, which we hope is the case, we're praying that that's the case, and being in search of a quarterback yet again, and this is different than being in search of a quarterback last year or even the year before after the 2020 season. This is different. We're actually a winning ball club now. We weren't a winning team. We won the division, but we weren't a winning team in 2020. We were essentially what the Giants are right now. New head coach, trying to change the culture. We weren't expecting anything. We just were looking to improve upon a 3-13 finish the year prior. That's all. And we lucked up into the division. Hey, how about that? But we never, at least me, I can't speak for anybody else. I never viewed that team as ready for anything other than, hey, let's find a guy. Ryan Fitzpatrick wasn't my idea of finding a guy. And I thought that's where Ron went wrong. And again, that draft in particular, 2021 draft, we needed linebacker help, but we needed quarterback more. And if you don't love a quarterback, don't take him. And I think the guys that they were really infatuated with, they couldn't get high enough to get them, or weren't willing to give up what it was going to take. That means you don't love a guy. That means you like him, you don't love him. Because if you love a guy, you'll give up whatever it takes to get him at the most important position in the sport. So they had their chances. I mean, they picked up the phone and they contacted some teams. And what those teams were asking for, Washington already said they weren't willing to give up. I surmise they were asking for either Daron Payne, Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, a combination, or obviously draft picks. They were asking for a haul, and Washington wasn't willing to give it up for a guy that they liked, they did not love. And remember, the only two that were really available were Mac Jones and Justin Fields. All the other three were off limits. They were gone, 1, 2, 3, bing, bang, boom. So at the end of the day, this is going to feel a lot different because we're making the playoffs this year. We're making the playoffs this year. And we're going to make the playoffs with a winning record this year. And it's going to feel a lot different than 2020 making it at 7-9 as a division winner. It's going to feel a hell of a lot different than the 2021 season when we were a massive disappointment after getting to 6-6 and then losing 4 out of your final 5 games and finishing that season up at 7 and 10. This is going to feel a lot different than that. Going into this offseason, you feel like we're a quarterback away from making some noise. So this offseason is going to be crazy, but we're not there yet. Stay present. Stay in the moment. We're chasing after a playoff berth. And the real pursuit starts now. As we head to in other news, and that's where we're going to start this thing. Sunday Night Football. Giants at Commanders, NFC East football, meaningful in December. This is what you sign up for as a fan. This is what it's all about, you know. Playing these types of games, hoping that it leads to more important. You're hoping that this is just the start of important games and that next week's game against San Francisco has even greater meaning. And the game after that against Cleveland, even though the Browns suck, it has greater meaning. And then the Dallas game maybe doesn't mean as much for both teams because they're both already in the playoffs. But then that next week after that, wild card weekend, Washington is on the road at, Minnesota or at Philadelphia, depending on how things shake out. At San Francisco. And they're playing a big-time game on the road. What more could you ask for? Starts, though, with this game, and I want to take a look at the Giants and Commanders matchup on Sunday night. But before I do that, I quickly want to take a trip around the NFC East. So let's do that quickly. So everybody in the division won with the exception of the Giants because somebody had to lose or tie, as we found out last week, between the Eagles and the Giants. The first time the Eagles played the Giants this season, and they destroyed them 47 to, I think it ended up being 47 to 14. It got ugly. It was 21-0 at one point. It was, 20, I think they gotten it to as close as 27 to 14. And then the Eagles just ran away and hid and ended up winning that thing like 47-14. It was a bloodbath. So essentially what we expected happened, which is the Giants aren't good enough to beat the Eagles. They're not us, which is what further frustrates me about us tying them last week, is because they're not us. We're better than them. I can't say that any clearer. We're better than them, which is why we better beat them on Sunday. I'm just going to go out and say it. No more me, dancing around and pussyfooting and trying to be modest. F that. We're better than the Giants. We should beat them. I'll talk about that in a second, but the Cowboys barely eked out a victory over the Texans. So as far as I'm concerned, we were the ones that handled the Texans the best, which I'm not looking for a medal. I'm not looking for a gold star because we beat the Texans better than anybody else, but the Eagles struggled with them for 4 quarters. The Cowboys should have lost the game. At least the Eagles were never really in danger of losing that game. The Cowboys should have lost that football game, but they survive and advance 27-23, run their record to 10-3. The Eagles continue to be an NFL best, now 12-1, continue to be the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. With the Vikings losing, they extend that lead out. It's really more about Dallas and them coming back and trying to secure the division. And so that's what it's ultimately going to be about, because Dallas has only lost 1 game in the division, and it's to Philadelphia. So for all intents and purposes, if Dallas were to beat them on Christmas Eve, and the Eagles lose any other playoff games, and Cowboys continue to win, all they have to do is finish tied. Dallas is going to have a better divisional record than them. So all Dallas has to do is beat them in week number 16. And if they accomplish that, it sets the stage, as long as Dallas doesn't lose any more games, it sets the stage for week 18, meaning something for both teams. So it's not going to be Minnesota that catches Philadelphia. With 4 to go, up 2, and owning the tiebreaker, they've essentially boxed out the Minnesota Vikings. It's all about Dallas at this point for the Eagles. Because, again, Dallas is 2 games back, but they can cut that deficit to 1 and then be down 1 with the NFC record. As you can see, if you look at divisional records, the Eagles are 3-1, Dallas is 3-1, right? But if Dallas beats them, they go to 4-1, and the Eagles would drop to 3-2, and that would give them the edge with them splitting the season series. So it's a massive game, and Dallas winning. If they didn't beat the Texans, the Eagles win the division, essentially. That's what that would have meant, because the Eagles probably aren't losing another game to anybody not named Dallas this season. But at least week 18 would mean something for the Eagles against the Giants if Dallas were to beat them. So, again, you're not worried about it right now because we have our own business to attend to, but you should be rooting for Dallas. And, again, you don't have to. I usually just root for the 2 teams to beat the hell out of each other, but you should be rooting for Dallas in week number 16 against Philadelphia because it forces the Eagles, essentially, as long as Dallas continues to take care of business, it forces the Eagles to have to play out the string, which is what you want. Anyway, enough of that. Eagles are 12-1, Cowboys are 10-3. Both got it done in week number 14. Giants did not, obviously. They got hammered by the Philadelphia Eagles, which is what we pretty much expected. I don't know if we expected it to get as out of hand as it did, but we expect, and just like they did against Dallas, they had their opportunities early in that ball game, and they just weren't good enough, which is, again, why I am so frustrated with us tying them, which is what brings me to our discussion. Let's talk about the Sunday night game, the importance of it. Again, we've done this already. I just want to rehash a couple of things, maybe bring up a couple of things that I didn't bring up before, and just kind of outline why we need to take care of business against these Giants. We're the better team. We're the better team. So everything looks identical in the first couple categories, 7-5-1, win percentage is the same, right? But that's where it ends, okay? The similarities stop there, essentially. There's one more category that's rather similar. With the ass thrashing that they got from the Eagles, it changed their net points, the point differential that they had. They were -7 coming into this weekend, and by getting destroyed by like 26, it put them in a really bad spot. Now, you shouldn't make the playoffs with a -33, point differential. You shouldn't. And they won't. And we have to make sure that they don't. We beat them, and we'll go ahead and add our name to the plus side of this thing if we do it by more than 3 points. You look at the home record, this is where we have to improve because we've got 3 out of our final 4 games at home. We need to start taking care of home. Period. End of discussion. We've gotten better of late at home, but we need to be better at home. We need to be even better at home. But we started out rough at home. After beating Jacksonville, we lost 2 straight at home. Now, we need to start tightening up at the crib. So hopefully that begins here. We started with Atlanta, really. All right, after losing to the Vikings, we started with Atlanta. We need to continue to ride that wave all the way through the rest of the regular season. Giants have a better, home record with 1 more win, okay? But they do have the tie at home, which we do not, and I don't want one. Road record, this is where we've shined, which is why I was disappointed we didn't go to New York and win, is we haven't been afraid to go into anybody's house and disrespect them. Did it to Philadelphia, did it to Indianapolis, and anybody else on the schedule for that matter. We found a way to win on the road for the most part this season. Didn't do it to the Cowboys, obviously, earlier in the season, and didn't do it to Detroit. Those are the 2 losses. But we've been really good on the road. That needs to continue as well, because if we want to make some noise in the playoffs, we're not playing a home playoff game. We know that for a fact. So we're going to have to take care of business on the road. And we've been road warriors this season for the most part. Division. The Giants, this is what really is holding the Giants back right now. They haven't won a single game in the division this year. Now, we haven't been great in the division, obviously. Losing to Philadelphia and Dallas early in the season, but we're a different team now than we were then. By evidence of what we did to Philadelphia in Week 10. And again, really disappointed that we have this tie with the Giants, because I feel like we're the better team, but we have a chance to exact a measure of revenge. We have a chance to go in and make up for that performance by getting it done on a national stage in front of everybody and really look to solidify a postseason spot. This is a big game. This is a big, important game, as I've mentioned. So, us having that win in the division, we beat them. There's zero chance for them to catch us, pretty much. I can't say zero. Obviously, there's a chance. We could win no more games. They could win all the rest of their games. They could completely pass us and have it not be close. But if we beat them in this game, and I just want to take you to one more, and their conference record, not good. They're 3-5-1. This is one of the tiebreakers, but we wouldn't have to get there because they're a divisional opponent. So we would just go straight to the division record as the first tiebreaker, and you don't need to go any further than that, more likely than not. But, if we were to tie, the only way we would have a tiebreaker with the Giants is if we were to tie them again in this game, because the first tiebreaker is head-to-head. And whomever wins this game owns the head-to-head tiebreaker. But you look at their conference record. They're 3-5-1. We're 4-4-1. So we've gotten better in the conference. We started off slow in the conference. Losing to Detroit, losing to Dallas, losing to Philadelphia. We were awful early on, but then we came back and we beat Green Bay and we beat the Bears and we beat the Falcons, and we beat Philadelphia, and so we pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps after a really bad start in the conference. Now, the non-conference record, of course, we lost to Tennessee, the only team in the division. You look at everybody else's non-conference record. I told you this is why this division was going to be good this year. We play bad teams outside of the conference, so we need to take care of business, and everybody in the division has cleaned up except us. We let one slip against the Titans, or else our division would be undefeated against the AFC South and anybody else that we play. Like, we've got one more outside of the conference, and that's Cleveland, obviously, and we need to win that game. That's not an if, and, or but game. It's not going to be easy either, but we need to win that game. But this is the category that I think is the most important right now. This is the one that I think, if you're a Washington fan, this is what you should be pointing to. What is the record in the last 5 games? And for me, us being 3-1-1 and the Giants being 1-3-1 tells you all you need to know. They are struggling. They are going in the wrong direction. This was a Giants team that at one point was 7-2. 7-2. They've lost 3 out of 5, tied 1, and the only win is against the Houston Texans. They're not a good football team right now. If we can't beat them, we don't deserve to go anywhere. They're not better than us. They don't have a better roster than us, and they're not playing better football than us. You saw what the Eagles did. We're not the Eagles. Let me just state that very clearly. For some of you who think, well, look at what the Eagles did to them. We're not the Eagles. We're not capable of scoring 40 points in a game. We're not them. We don't blow anybody out. We don't destroy teams. That's not us. But what we are capable of doing is beating a team that we're better than. We've done it a lot this season. We need to do it again on Sunday night. We're better than the Giants. We're playing better than the Giants. We need to go out and prove once and for all that we're better than the Giants this season. Everything here states that we're better than the Giants except the record. And that's our fault because we didn't take care of business in New York in week 13. We've got an opportunity to make amends. And right or wrong. Big ass game. Can't get any bigger. Stakes can't be any higher. We can either bury the Giants on Sunday night or we can give them life like we did last week. It's up to us. I told Eagles fans, Lord Brunson and anybody, we don't need you for anything. We don't need you for anything. We control the outcome of our season. If we want that to ring true, we need to beat the Giants on Sunday night. You want to start needing teams to do us solids. You want to start scoreboard watching. Even during your own game, you're wondering what this team is doing and that team's doing. Lose to the Giants on Sunday. Then you'll need a ton of help. You'll need Minnesota to beat the Giants the following week. And then you'll need this team to bail you out and that team. If you want to avoid all of that, just win football games. Then you don't need anybody for anything. We're better than the Giants. We need to prove it on Sunday Night Football. And so that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the latest installment of Commanders Nightly News. The bye week was fun. It was very refreshing. I think, hell, I know the players needed it, but I think us as fans needed the shit too, okay? We've been on this roller coaster ride the entire season, and it was just great to be able to kick our feet up, watch everybody else beat the hell out of each other, and not have to worry about our guys going to war. Well, that's done, and I hope you've rested up. I hope your heart got some rest. Hope you ate your Wheaties, your Cheerios, all right? Strengthen that heart up because you're going to need it for these remaining 4 games of the regular season. And mark my words, we will be playing some bonus football this season. So go ahead, strap it up and get ready because it's going to be an extra long ride this season, or at least longer than normal. So I'll see you guys all week long. Bart Scott, can't wait. Should be a great week. Can't wait till they hit the practice field on Wednesday so we can kind of get a better feel for the injury situation. Will Chase Young be back this week? Won't he be back? What's the status of Benjamin St. Juste? How is Trey Turner coming along? A lot of questions. Where's Sam Cosmi? Is his ankle better? Can he give it a go? A lot of questions. We won't have the answers until Wednesday. But again, we will see. Until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. You guys, have a good one. See you next time.
Here comes the Diesel. Here comes the Diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the